we got another author on the line, Bret Baier from Fox News Channel. He's got a New York Times bestseller in Special Heart. How are you, Bret?
Hey, good morning.
I want to start. There's a story in the New York Times this morning that sort of is setting people on edge a little bit. It was discussed somewhat yesterday by Ted Cruz and Jeff Sessions. The Obama administration is, trying to deal with this immigration matter, and this is their wonderful solution. They're going to possibly send some officials down to interview young adults in Honduras to screen them and possibly bring them back to the United States, giving them refugee status rather than require them to come into this country by crossing Mexico and come into the United States illegally. On one hand, the Obama administration says we want to solve this problem and the kids at the border are going to be sent back. On the other hand, we now hear that through executive action, they're thinking about taking this action on an emergency basis.
Right. Yeah, the whole thing's going to cause a lot of uproar up on Capitol Hill. The president's meeting with the Central American presidents today, including the Honduran president, who was on Greta's show last night. It was interesting to hear him say that one of the biggest draws to the U.S. is a confusion over immigration law, and that this sense that once the kids get here, that they're staying here. So, that's already there, and the question is whether an executive order on top of that would draw the magnet even more.
Well, that seems like the problem. I mean, it doesn't seem like they're doing anything necessarily to stop the flow of illegal immigrants on the southern border. But my question, Bret, is, Republicans have been very frustrated with the administration because President Obama says he wants to work with them on one hand, but then on the other, he says he's going to go around Congress and use executive action. This just seems like one more of those issues, and I don't see John Boehner reacting to this in a very positive way.
In a favorable way, no.
Yeah, no, I don't either. And you've seen where the pen and the phone has come to heads and loggerheads with Congress in recent weeks. I think you're going to see a lot of pushback. And, listen, there's clearly these kids are in a bad situation, and there's a lot of feeling out there on both sides of the aisle for their plight. But there's also a sense that at some point you have to draw the line and operate under the law as it is.
I want to get your take on the story that we've been following pretty closely this week, the continuing investigation into Lois Lerner, her hard drives, and really that question is whether or not the IRS was being wielded as a political weapon against the enemies of the Obama administration, or the perceived enemies of the Obama administration. And lately, now we find that apparently her hard drive, Lois Lerner's hard drive, well, before they shredded it and ran it through a machine that turned it into tiny little bits of metal, that it was only scratched, they say, and they say maybe we could have retrieved some data, we chose not to. And for me, the question has always been, how does a hard drive get scratched?
Yeah.
What is your take on the latest information that's coming out on this story?
This story is just so, it just keeps on getting stranger.
Yes.
It keeps on getting more weird. It's just, at first, they can't get the emails. Then it's that the actual hard drive has been destroyed. Then it is, well, we knew we had a problem, but we couldn't ask anybody about it because the IG was investigating. And it's just been a little surreal listening to some of the answers. Now, how much coverage is this getting across the board? Not a lot. And you have the president just 2 days ago in a fundraiser saying again, Republicans are obsessed with phony scandals. Now, I don't know too many people who say this is normal for the IRS to just have lost these documents that are crucial to this investigation. And suddenly it's just okay for the IRS to say, well, sorry, we accidentally destroyed them.
Mm-hmm. But let me get to one of the things that you've pointed out there that just drives me nuts about this. I think this is a very serious matter, that the IRS was potentially used as a political weapon. And that should outrage every American if this indeed was the case. And if it was not the case, then let's just get into it. Show us what you got, tell us everything you know, and let's straighten it out. Otherwise, it seems to me to be a scandal of the top order that's getting, as you point out, absolutely no coverage.
I mean, you have messages now between Lois Lerner and the IT person at IRS saying, so just let me be clear, can they track our instant messages too at Congress? You know, I mean, she's saying to them, and they come back and say, yes, you should think that. And she said, well, I've told people not to write a lot of things down. And by just doing that, she's written it down.
Right.
And it's, I don't know. I think it's mind-boggling that the thing doesn't get more attention. We've obviously covered from the beginning, and we continue to do so. The question now is whether there's a special prosecutor and whether that moves forward.
One of the things that I have found interesting, and you brought up President Obama saying this is a phony scandal, is the disconnect between Democrats on the Hill and President Obama to their constituencies. A recent poll showed that 66% of Democrats want the IRS investigated until someone is held accountable. 73% want a special prosecutor. You know, this is something that out in the electorate and out in America that people want investigated and they are concerned about, but it seems like there's a disconnect on Capitol Hill between the questioning that goes on from Democrats and from the fundraising pulpit that President Obama has been using over the past couple months on this issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, Katie. I think that that there are, you know, if you ask in different polls, some numbers that suggest that those Democrats are, you know, helping the administration and perhaps not listening to constituents' concerns. But I do think that there is a large part of the population that doesn't know, that doesn't really follow what's been happening with this IRS investigation, and that's in part to blame by media coverage that has not done it. If you're not watching Fox News Channel, I don't know if you know the latest.
No, you don't, and that's you're absolutely right. All right, now look. Speaking of media, they do seem to be in the White House briefing room getting a little irritated these days with the Obama administration. Have you noticed, as I have noticed, the number of stories we've seen in the last few days where people are talking about no transparency, no access to the president? We get, every time we do an interview with somebody from the administration, there's a minder in the room.
Yeah, there's a crossover. I mean, it has reached a peak, and I think there's a lot of pushback. I will say, you know, not to harp on media stuff, but there are some great journalists in the White House press corps who ask amazing questions. But some of those back and forths don't make it on their networks.
Yeah.
And so the story selection is always a part of it. I think that there's a lot of frustration in that White House press corps, and it's bubbling over.
All right, listen, we'll leave it right there. Bret Baier, anchor of Special Report, and, of course, he's the author of the book Special Heart, which is, I guess, doing pretty well.
Doing all right. We had 5 weeks on the New York Times list.
Awesome. Congratulations.
That ain't bad. Thank you, Bret. Talk to you soon.